Hello, welcome to Tales from the Bridge. My name is Tristan.
And I'm Kevin.
And this is Sam.
And I'm James.
And on the show today, we're going to start off by talking about some science fiction, science fact. I've got a pretty cool thing related to interstellar travel I want to talk about.
And we'll also take a moment to talk about what else we've been reading and watching.
And our book of the month was When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi. And we're going to talk about our thoughts on the book that we read last month.
And of course, as always, please download episodes, leave us a review, reach out to us. Tales from the Bridge podcast at gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a book recommendation or a film recommendation.
And be sure to stick around because it is my pick of the month. And I think I've got a good one. And so without further ado, let us make our way over to the bridge.
Would I blow all of your minds if I were to tell you that there was a new way to do interstellar travel and it could be done by launching a 1.5 kilogram payload up into space? And apparently it would be able to escape our solar system at the same speeds that the Voyager space probes did, and potentially up to some percentage of the speed of light.
Yes,
would it blow your mind?
Yes, that would blow my mind.
Well,
It already did.
prepare to have your minds blown. Well, I mean, maybe. I hope so. There's a guy named Professor David Kipping, and some of you guys may know him, but you may not know that you know him. He has a fairly famous YouTube channel called Cool Worlds. He's a physicist, and he's, I don't know, surprisingly attractive, and also just an eloquent speaker about physics. He's British, of course, and he talks about really interesting physics concepts, and he makes them accessible. And he's also as I understand it, a pretty good physicist and publishes papers and does these kinds of things. And he said that, for his entire adult life, he's been awaiting Starship Enterprise to come and beam him up so that he can go at warp speeds and leave the solar system. And he just recently came out with a YouTube video, which I recommend you guys check out. And it talks about this interstellar travel system that he has come up with called TARS, T-A-R-S. And I'll talk about that in a second. And that might twig a bit of memory for some of you guys who
Interstellar.
That's right. So that is actually an interstellar reference. But to be able to understand how this thing works, you got to kind of have a bit of background. So I'm sure you guys have seen there's a startup that's trying to spin a spin launch system to take satellites, spin them really fast, and then shoot them up into the high part of the atmosphere where a rocket will ignite, and then it could take it up into the rest of the way into orbit. I don't believe they've actually gotten it to work yet, but it's a cool kind of idea. But take that concept and put it up into space, and that's kind of what this guy's talking about, except you mix that with another concept, which is, do you guys remember in grade 9 science class when your science teacher probably showed you a weird looking little light bulb that has a white little sheet of plastic and a black sheet of plastic, and you put it in front of a light and the thing starts spinning? It's called a Crookes radiometer. I see one head nodding, but anyway, basically what it does is one side, the black side of this piece of plastic, absorbs light and the white side does not. And so the light actually makes the thing spin inside of the vacuum in this light bulb. And it's just a simple little toy without a lot of applications on Earth's surface, but you go up into space and there's already a vacuum up there. He has done the math and done the engineering that shows that he could make one of these really big radiometers. It's not actually using the same stuff. It's actually using solar winds and some other things, but he can get a big piece of carbon nanotube sheets spinning at a really fast speed, like to the point of where the tips of this sheet are going something like 12 kilometers per second. So imagine, if you will, a really big sheet in orbit going around the sun, spinning at some ungodly speed. And at the corners of this thing he's suggesting putting little micro satellites, like the ones that people have talked about shooting with lasers up into other solar systems. And at some point, the tensile strength of the little strings holding these microsatellites on the edge of this thing will break, and it'll just go pew off like a maple key, shooting out somewhere into the solar system. And he said each one of these spinny pieces of carbon nanotube material will weigh something like 1.5 kilograms. So you just start tossing these things up into Earth's orbit, and they would just start shooting microsatellites all over the place for virtually no energy because the sun is spinning them up. Takes 3 years for them to get up to speed, but when they do get up to speed, if they're in the same orbit as Earth, when they shoot off at 12 kilometers per second, they are also going at the speed that the Earth is going around the sun, which accelerates them to 40 kilometers per second, which just happens to be the escape velocity for our solar system. So crazily enough, without any propellant being sent out or shooting any lasers at these little microsatellites, theoretically, we could launch microsatellites outside of the gravity of the sun and into interstellar space. So this was one of those few ideas that you hear about that is both an engineering, it's practical from an engineering standpoint. I mean, it sounds like it is. I don't actually know. And apparently it's feasible from a physics standpoint. And it seems like it's a novel idea. So it got me all excited.
Sorry, my mic was on mute. Otherwise, you would have heard my mind being blown there, Kevin. Because this is a good one. I got to say, I have not heard about this prior to today, and it is well. Let me say too. What was it called again? The light bulb that you mentioned.
It's, if I'm pronouncing it right, I believe it's called a Crookes radiometer.
Because I do remember getting my little grade 9 mind blown back then as well when I saw those. And this has done it as well, too. And this is, again, I mean, again, without knowing anything beyond what you've told us about this, this is another really clear and interesting demonstration of kind of the magic of science, if you will, and how new people can bring new ideas and, if you'll forgive the pun, a new spin on, classic things that are kind of simple and elegant and that makes sense and could lead to really a revolution in, something like interstellar travel. And, yeah, it's that stuff that is exciting. I don't see a downside to it. I'm sure hopefully there'll be someone to point it out if there is. But yeah, that's a great example of a science fiction, science fact, and I'd love to learn more about this. I hope they're successful.
I like this idea where it's a kind of a confluence of ideas, and perhaps that's the path to interstellar travel. This sort of recipe of different ideas that come together and of existing ideas. And why not start small? We always want to think, well, you got to put people out into interstellar travel. Well, why not start small? Start with pros, work your way up to that. And it sounds super cool. Yeah, it seems economical as well.
I think that's the idea, right? Like,
Yeah.
and we always think we have one shot at this. We got to get this one space probe up into space, and then it has to get all the way to Jupiter and get slingshotted around that for gravity assist. Well, what if we just put up thousands of them and just hope for the best, like maple keys from a tree, right? It's just another approach. And I forgot to mention. Remember, I called this thing TARS, T-A-R-S. So yes, that is a reference to the robot in Interstellar, but it's actually also an acronym, and it stands for Torqued Acceleration Using Radiation from the Sun. So he made that work pretty well, and he loves Interstellar too, by the way.
Just so long as we don't accidentally shoot the Earth by mistake. Have it pointed in a safe direction.
That is a good point.
They would disintegrate by the time they hit the surface. Is that correct? If they're going that fast?
Would. Yeah, they're apparently 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, so they're pretty small. They would just burn up in the atmosphere.
But when they're traveling that fast, it's like, well, how fast do they disintegrate, right? That's wow.
I don't know.
That's cool.
Crazy.
All right, are we ready to go over what else we've been reading and watching lately?
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll start us off. I've been reading Folded Sky by Elizabeth Bear. This is the third installment in the White Space novels, and hopefully we get a chance to talk about it with Elizabeth in person coming up soon. But it's been a great read. I've enjoyed this series and a lot of the concepts that she approaches. It's a lot of psychology and in a way, we talk about sometimes how sci-fi works as a great kind of proof of concept, and she does a great way of doing a proof of concept on how to live and how to evolve emotional intelligence and how to really kind of get introspective on why you might react to a certain situation a certain way. And this is great because we see a lot of like proof of concept for technology, but this is proof of concept, I think, for psychology. And she does a really interesting job of it. And it helps you think about how you do things in your daily life. Like it's helped I feel like it's reading Elizabeth Bear has improved my EQ in a way, and so I recommend the books and happy to chat with her more about it in the near future.
So kind
And
of social sci-fi.
it is, yeah. I think you see aspects of that, say also with like say Becky Chambers or and Arcady Martin and a few others that we've had on the show as well. But this is goes a little further, I think, into the psychology of it in a way that I don't know that many authors do. They touch upon it, and this is though more central to the story and thinking about someone's decision making process and how they're reacting to a situation and all of that internal dialogue makes for a pretty interesting read, and I feel it's largely unique to Elizabeth in this one, but I could be wrong. There's plenty of stuff I haven't read, but
Cool.
if our listeners out there have other suggestions or recommendations related in that sort of same genre, we'd be happy to hear them. The other thing, I'm a little late to the party here, but I've just started just because of what streaming services I'm attached to. Uh, I've started watching Resident Alien, and if you want some like good comfort watching, particularly for the summer, and it's just a lovely de-stress kind of watch. So if you got stuff going on at work, come home, watch a Resident Alien. It'll be okay, right? So
My brain, as usual, has gone into full on summer mode, so I have not been reading anything else other than our book of the month. However, speaking of aliens, and just to date ourselves here a little bit, I did see the new Superman movie, and I know it's a comic book property, but there's plenty of sci fi aspects in that. It's aliens and technology and mad billionaire scientists. Have any of you seen it yet? The three of you? We haven't talked about it yet.
I did go, yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah. It was as somebody, and I will. I'm going to put this out there. I have been a lifelong Superman fan. This character has been with me right from the time I was getting my mind blown by weird light bulbs. But it was, and for me, really, the Christopher Reeve original Superman film. I still remember seeing the posters at my local theater when I was a kid. The whole "you'll believe a man can fly," and I did. It was, for me, the Chris Reeve movies are still, the first one and the second one are still untouchable. The Zack Snyder movies, for me, were a fundamental misunderstanding of the character, sadly. Some cool stuff, but way off target. But this one was a return to form. It was fun. It was, there was lots of fun things from the comics that I think before the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we would have never been able to accept in movies, or studios wouldn't have accepted because they were outlandish and wacky and garish. It was a bit of a mixed bag for me. I got to admit, it was a bit. It was silly in parts, which I find it can be a bit of a James Gunn crutch. The silly can kind of take over instead of the actual funny. But it's forgivable. It was a good time. The cast was spectacular. I think David Cornsweet as the new Superman was fantastic. Rachel Brosnahan was a very fine Lois Lane, and Nicholas Hoult was a great Lex Luthor. So with that, you've got your foundation, your super foundation, and everything else, like the Justice Gang characters. Bringing all these characters that I had been wanting to see since I was a teenager and reading Justice League International. It was good. It was fun, and I look forward to having a more critical second view.
I will take this moment to just call back on some episodes that we have done. We did a trivia episode with Sean Gunn, James Gunn's brother, in the past, and we talked a little bit about James's early work. And then also, Sam, you mentioned Resident Alien. We had Robert Duncan McNeil on the show on a trivia episode as well. And he directed multiple episodes of Resident Alien, and we talked about that on the show. So just wanted to call back some of our own episodes and toot our own horn a little bit.
Toot,
Zap our own phasers a little.
Yeah.
That sounds weird. I'll go next, and I'll just mention I haven't been reading a whole lot of sci-fi. I've been going through a Western phase. I'm reading a lot of Westerns, guys, and really enjoying it. But I did read one. Now, this isn't really heavy science fiction as much as it is. It's a very condensed, small story about a little bit of a post-apocalyptic storytelling in northern Ontario, and it's a book called The Moon of the Crusted Snow by Wabgeshig Rice, an Indigenous Canadian author. And just a nice, easy little story about the hydro going out, the internet going out, and then soon finding yourself in a world where down south everything's gone to hell and the apocalypse has happened. It doesn't go into detail as to what happened. It really just talks about the community and how they come together and the conflicts that they face. And it's not super heavy on the science fiction, but the post-apocalyptic edge was nice because I haven't read post-apocalyptic in a while. I want to read more Indigenous Canadian authors, and that was one, and I really enjoyed that. And there's at least one more, maybe even three. There's more books, so I'll continue with that series in due time, but I'll recommend that one.
So I too have been doing some reading. I actually read a few books, but I'm going to talk about two. Last month, I mentioned that I was listening to Ian M. Banks's Matter, one of the culture books. I finished that one. It's great. It's definitely one of the better culture stories. Very accessible, great plot lines. It's not hardcore hard sci-fi. It's just a good story, I believe. It's long, but I really enjoy it. I like all the culture books. I also read Machine Vendetta by Alastair Reynolds. Alastair Reynolds, of course, is a prolific space opera author, and Machine Vendetta has Prefect Dreyfus, the whodunit detective that does all of his work in the glitter band around Yellowstone. So he's created this world that many people are quite familiar with, and I love Alastair Reynolds' work as well. And I did some fantasy. I read a book by T. Kingfisher called A Sorceress Comes to Call. And that was a very nice story. All of her stuff is great as well. I've read a few of her books, and every now and again I got to scratch my fantasy itch, so I did a little bit of that.
She is hilarious, by the way. T. Kingfisher. Like, if you want to, I would love to chat with her. She is so funny. She tells amazing stories. She is fantastic. I haven't read her work. Miranda reads her stuff, but I really find her interesting.
Yeah, I think her real name is Ursula Vernon. I don't know why she goes by the pen name T. Kingfisher, but it's a cool pen name.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So our book of the month was When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi. This is a very recent book that was just published, came out in March of this year, 2025, by Tor Books. In good John Scalzi fashion, it has some elements of humor, but it also tries to get readers to connect with real humans in real ways, and I think it's intended to be very accessible. This one in particular takes a funny look at how the world could end, and so there's concepts of there's moments of pain but there's also a lot of satire about society and comedic elements, and we deal with mortality and the collapsing of the world, right? So, but ultimately, this is because of cheese. The moon turns into cheese, and it's a weird concept, and I don't believe that a lot of authors could make this work. But I don't know. Let's see what you guys think as to whether or not John Scalzi made this book work. So, what do you guys think of the book of the month?
This book came at the right time for me. I don't think I had any Scalzi books that I planned on reading anytime in the near future, but I would not have read this anytime soon without the recommendation, and I'm glad I did. I should say though, I did listen to it. I'm sure everyone's got a lot to say if you did listen to it about the narration by Will Wheaton, which really added to the fun for me. If I had read it, I think I would have enjoyed it because it's smart, it's funny, but this is typically not the kind of science fiction that I'm looking for. Like I will say hands down, it's not the science fiction I'm looking for. Am I glad that I read it? Yeah, for sure. Or listened to it. It was just super fun. When you have someone like Will Wheaton narrating, it just added to it. It's a silly book. Like, obviously, it's ridiculous. The moon turns to cheese. I mean, how many times in the book did you hear the moon is fucking cheese in this book? Quite a few. But it's fun enough to go along with. It is satirical. It definitely shows different groups on Earth and how things, what happened after everyone found out that the moon is cheese. The idea is ridiculous. I was kind of hoping that the ending would kind of explain why everyone thought it turned to cheese, because the ending's kind of neat. I won't spoil too much, but you get to a point where you start to question whether the moon actually did turn to cheese. I was hoping for a little bit of this is why it turned to cheese, but I also think that ending was very powerful by saying, hey, well, if I am going to spoil it, I'm just going to say, let's just do it. In the future, people might not know whether the moon actually turned to cheese or not. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. We don't know whether the moon turned to cheese in the past or not, even a couple hundred years in the future. I found that really interesting, and that goes to talk about, just what's on the news now. What are people in the future going to say? That whole thing that happened back then actually didn't happen. Just like you have Holocaust deniers now. Like we just, it's right in front of our faces, but we still have people calling out stuff that never happened. There's a lot to say about this book and its ideas, and it came out in a very funny, fun way. So I was actually pleasantly surprised because I'm a bit, I'm not in a hurry to get to a John Scalzi book because they're a little bit too lighthearted and not that hard sci-fi big ideas that I'm usually after. But maybe it was the right time. I did enjoy this. Found it perfectly fine and fun, and I enjoyed going back to it every time that I did. So I thought it was a good pick for summer for sure.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have picked this up just off the shelf, just of interest, even though I have read Scalzi before and I do like his stuff. But I'm really glad you did recommend this. I think it was a great summer read. It was a great kind of absurdist study of human behavior more than science fiction theory or principles, if you will. Which was refreshing as well. That notion of the moon having turned to fucking cheese, as you say, or as they said, was pretty fascinating and a great hook. It was interesting, the multiple POVs. I didn't realize that was the way the story was going to go. That more or less every chapter was a different character and a different POV. I mean, it was more or less a homogenous slice of Americana POV, I would say. There wasn't a lot of international points of view, which would have been something I might have liked to see as well. But for what we did here and for what John Scalzi did write about, there were some really interesting reactions, especially when the stakes rose. And I'm not going to spoil about halfway through the book when the stakes got dramatically higher. Up until that point, we had billionaires behaving badly and, scientists doing their thing and trying to science the shit out of it, as they say in another book. But it was a good study. And I think my favorite chapter of all, even though it's, people being despicable, well, the bankers being bankers. And for those of you who read the book, you'll know what I mean when you read it. So bravo, John Scalzi. You took a bizarro, bonkers idea and you really made it work. I also read, or listened rather, to this as opposed to read it. Agreed. Will Wheaton, man, you gave an audiobook performance unlike any I had heard before. It was more excited and invested than I think about any other reader I've heard. Almost to a fault, I would say. There were a couple times I was like, "Oh, okay, Will, pull it back," but it was really enjoyable, and I think he did add a lot to the experience. And again, to date us, I think it's actually Will Wheaton's birthday today. I think I saw that online today. So happy birthday, Will Wheaton.
Happy birthday, Will. Hey, wait, he's also the traveler too, isn't he? Like this, right?
He is now,
He's
yeah.
super powerful entity that is almost as
Like a,
powerful as a Q, apparently.
like a Q type being.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they've defined that fully, but yeah, you're right. Totally.
But
What
so
do
they
you
still have
mean?
birthdays.
What do you mean? What are you talking
You
about?
don't get
You
that
gotta watch
reference
Picard. Watch Picard.
in Star
Oh, I
Trek
didn't
Next
watch-
Generation.
Oh, Next Generation.
Yeah, that was it. Wesley Crusher became the Traveler. He was
What?
he was schooled by the Traveler. He went off and became this semi-immortal entity.
Oh my gosh, need to rewatch.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry about that divergence.
Let's just talk about Next Generation now. Catch me up.
They had to get rid of the Wesley character somehow, Wesley Crusher. So they just farmed him off as to be schooled by the Traveler, and he was heading off outside of time and space to learn about the real nature of the universe, and was no longer on the Enterprise.
As you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Will does do a great job. I didn't even realize that. I actually thought it was someone else, and then one of you guys said, "No, that's Will Wheaton." I was like, "What? Oh, that's." I I thought he was great because I listened to this as well. This was an excellent book for listening to. I thought When the Moon Hits Your Eye is essentially like the musical episode of Strange New Worlds. It's kind of like this like silly side quest that takes this absurd event and wraps it in a serious narrative, and that's where the humor is. And for me, anyways, and I don't know that there are many authors doing like comedic sci-fi books, right? I feel like he's one of the few. I mean, like maybe Martha Wells and Murderbot or Dungeon Crawler Carl, but I think it's a very small subset, and I'm kind of here for it. Like when I'm in the mood for it, I can kind of, it's like for a summer read, especially. Why not? Like, it's fun. You're on vacation, have a laugh. I would say that I kind of needed to be in the right headspace for it, and I was. But yeah, overall, I thought it was fun. That was a good pick. And unlike everyone else here, I think I don't know that I would have picked it up on my own uh, if it hadn't been Kevin forcing it on us. And I was a little skeptical, but I like Scalzi, so I'm happy to read another Scalzi book. And yeah, no, it was good.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. I think it was a good summer read. Yeah, it's certainly pretty light. And speaking of favorite chapters, James, you mentioned your favorite chapter. In it, just thinking about it, I loved the chapter where he was just trying to humanize the challenges that Earth was encountering when there were the flip off the moon parties where people would go and they would give the finger to the moon because F that thing because it's made out of cheese now and it's going to destroy the world. And there were two competing cheese shops in this town in Wisconsin, and they were estranged brothers that weren't speaking to each other. And when the mob started attacking one of the cheese shops, the estranged brother comes to the defense of the other brother, and it was so poignant and moving. And then they became friends again and hugged. I just thought that was great. It was classic
was
human
good.
storyline.
That was good.
Anyway, thanks, guys. I too thought
Yeah,
it was a
great
pretty
pick.
good book. Yep, thanks.
what we are reading next. Okay, it is my pick this month, and for this one, I need you guys to keep an open mind because I'm gonna pull us out of the sci-fi mode for a little bit, but we're gonna go into the fantasy and maybe scratch that itch of yours you mentioned, Kevin, with the
Oh,
fantasy.
it's itchy. It's itchy.
Are you still got the itch? Okay,
Oh, it's
okay,
there.
good. I'm glad to. Well, okay.
Guys.
But more, but more important than an open mind, I want you to open your hearts. I want you to come with me on this journey because we're going to explore a subset of fantasy that has become very popular over the last little while, and that is the romantasy subgenre. We are going to read A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. And it is the book one of the Saga of the Unfated series. So, Danielle L. Jensen, Canadian author, I believe from Calgary, and our first romantasy, if I'm not mistaken, on Tales from the Bridge.
Wow. The problem is my heart is shriveled, cold, and black. So we'll see how this goes.
What is
Maybe
it
like
again,
the
James?
Grinch, it will increase it to 3 times its size, its current size, or something. But
All right, we'll see how it goes. It looks cool. It's
yeah,
almost,
What's the title again? I'm sorry.
it's called A Fate Inked in Blood.
Oh, that's a good fantasy title.
and a lot of ratings on Goodreads. Good ratings. Looks like it's a crowd favorite.
It was actually recommended to me by someone who's a bit of an expert in this field. So I took her advice and went with this. I mean, if you look at the shelves, like, and some Indigo, our big bookstore chain, they send out, marketing emails advertising the romantasy titles. This has become a real thing and a real sort of market driver, I think, for a certain segment of book readers. So I was curious, like you see those ones about, I think Fourth Wing is a book in one of the other series, and A Court of Thorn and Roses, I think, is another
Well,
big
Sarah J.
one.
Maas is huge. There's a few huge, and TikTok has blown up romantasy for sure. So
Exactly.
this is fantasy and romance.
This is fantasy with a romantic edge, and I wanted to avoid one of those ones that's super huge already. I wanted to kind of maybe, come in through the side and find something that hadn't had a super ton of hype yet, but yet that's still sort of hewed to the subgenre. So I think, and I'm about halfway through it, and I'm not going to say, but we'll wait till our episode and see what we all think.
Why
If this
not?
doesn't give us brownie points with the other half, I don't know what will, eh?
I like a good romance, even with my shriveled black cold heart.
I'm a romantic at heart,
That's right.
and I love fantasy. Fantasy was my gateway into sci-fi, and always happy to go back to like swords and mages. Let's do it. I'm up for it, and it's
What?
perfect timing because I'm kind of off right now. I got some time off, and I got time to read, so just in time.
Thanks, James.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for joining us. We very much appreciate you. Lots more to come on Tales from the Bridge. Go back and check out old episodes if you haven't yet. Reach out to us, talesfromthebridgepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again. Until next time.